My name's Monika. I'm now 25, but I was born into the truth. Oh, that sounds weird. I was born a witness. The truth. So I was born a witness. I basically was baptized at 15. I became a regular pioneer soon after. So I was regular pioneering for about 3 years. My whole family is still a witness, and we're a very big family. I grew up sort of in the western suburbs of Sydney, and yeah, that's been pretty much it. Very, the whole family spiritually in heavy, elders, so it was expected to get baptized, start pioneering,
And did you believe it?
Yeah. 100%.
Didn't have any doubts about anything in particular?
No, not at all. I thought, this is it.
Mm-hmm.
And that I was pretty much knew something that everyone else didn't.
Mm.
Yeah.
So you actually ended up in trouble with the elders for dating a worldly boy. Why were you dating a worldly boy and not a witness?
Well, I had previously dated many witness guys. Well, when I say many, I mean 2.
Mm-hmm.
One of them in which did propose to me, but that didn't work out, obviously. So when I met this worldly boy, he actually was better than the guys that were witnesses. So I thought, he's a really nice person just in general, and I did like him. But I knew he wasn't a witness, and I knew that wouldn't go down very well.
Mm-hmm.
But I also knew that there was that slight technicality that there wasn't really anything in the Bible that said that, you could get in serious trouble for being with someone that's not a witness. Mm-hmm. It was not recommended, obviously, and I guess like in my little sort of fantasy world, I thought that he could maybe become a witness.
Mm-hmm.
So I kind of took the angle of, maybe I could teach him the truth.
So you talked to him about...
Yeah, I counted my hours.
That's a good finance strategy.
So I did used to count my hours, and I even made 2 placements. So I was actually trying to convert him, because I thought, like, he's an amazing dude.
Mm-hmm.
There's just one thing about him that just wasn't right, and maybe I could fix that. So.
Mm-hmm. Okay, and then what ended up happening after... You told me you dated him 6 months, and then you got talked to about it? Yeah,
so what ended up happening within that 6 months actually was we were having really serious fights about, obviously, disbeliefs, differences with, what, because he's an atheist,
mm-hmm.
and I was heavily, a believer. So we broke up a couple of times, and it got to the stage where we thought, this is just not going to happen. So we ended it. We were not together for about 2-3 weeks, and my stepsister, I think, at the time thought that something had been going on or was going on. So it all happened on a Saturday, where my stepmother and father said to me, we're going to go witnessing, and then we're going to go have lunch. And I'm like, okay, cool. Sounds like the usual. So I hopped in the car with them, and then noticed my stepsister hadn't joined. It was just with me. And I thought that was a bit odd, because, she pretty much didn't like doing things without everyone. She didn't like feeling left out. So I felt a bit like, is this going to ruffle some feathers? But they were like, no, we're just taking you. And I thought, okay, that's odd, but let's go. So we literally did one return visit, and then we went and had lunch. But while we were having lunch, Dad got a phone call back at home where my stepsister still was, saying, there's something wrong with the dog. Can you please come back to the house? So he then separated from my stepmother and I. And at that point, she started interrogating me and started asking questions like, our family's going through a tough time, and, the house just doesn't feel like it's being blessed by Jehovah, and perhaps there's something going on behind the scenes that might be, a disturbance or, something's wrong. And she tried to sort of get something out of myself, well, I'm not in this relationship anymore, so I'm just, there's no point even bringing it up because it's not going to happen.
Mm-hmm.
So I kind of just, said, nah, it's fine on my end,
And had you done anything in the relationship worthy of being really in trouble?
No.
Being disfellowshipped for?
Probably to his regret, no. No. We just maybe kissed, and that was about it.
Uh-huh.
Like, nothing happened. I made sure of that because I thought to myself that, deep down, if this doesn't work out, or I don't get what I want, I don't want to be, like, potentially, damaged goods.
And you were still totally believing, so you
Yeah,
had sort of good intentions.
yeah. So I didn't want to ruin everything. So, and which was a bit ironic because it's like I know it's like my heart was somewhere else, but my mind was in two different places. But I still tried to do my best and not do anything by the book that would get me in trouble. So anyway, Dad came back, and when he came back, he was like crying.
Mm-hmm.
He was like really, really disturbed. And I thought to myself, what's happened? Is everything okay back at home for this? Anyway. And then he just goes to me, Mon, you need to tell the truth. You just need to tell the truth. Own up to it. And I thought, what? And then he goes, we know what's happening. We know you have a worldly boyfriend. And I said, okay, look, yes, I did have a worldly boyfriend, but it's no longer a thing anymore because of differences, and I choose Jehovah. And so he was like, okay. Anyway, we went back home, and then that's when it all started. So it was a bit awkward because everyone now knew, and there was a little bit of, a lot of awkwardness, particularly with my stepmother and stepsister.
Mm-hmm.
They never really liked me to begin with, so that just made it worse. And Dad was pretty upset. They sort of came up with the plan of, okay, well, now that we know about this, you now need to confess to the elders. And you need to quit your job. And you need to do all this and that and all that. Now, the reason why I had to quit my job was because I worked with this guy.
Mm-hmm.
So I did. I actually sent an email to my manager and said, sorry, I have to quit my job. And this was all on the same day.
Wow.
Like one day. So I did that. And then he also said, now you need to call him and say you're never going to see him again. And I thought, oh my goodness, that's a bit uncalled for, and that's going to be a very awkward situation, and I've kind of already done this, so I don't need to do it again. But no, Dad sat me in the corner and watched me make this phone call and tell this guy that I can't speak to him again, which was very awkward. And then finally, I had to confess to the elders because they didn't believe me that I hadn't done anything. They're like, you've been with this guy for 6 months, I'm sure you've done something. And so Dad dropped me off at the Kingdom Hall, had to speak to 2 elders, and it started off okay. I was very much like, yes, I had been dating a worldly guy, but nothing's happened and I've made these corrections. And I honestly thought they would maybe give me a bit of counsel and be like, just keep doing what you're doing and try not to go back or whatever. But instead they started asking me like really weird questions, like very weird questions. I don't know.
Inappropriate.
Yeah.
Inappropriate questions.
I had to Google some of the stuff because I didn't know what it meant.
So I've heard this many times from... Because you're there on your own, you don't have any support. You've got 3 older men. And
it was just 2.
Or 2 at that time.
It was 2 to start off with.
The first time.
Yeah, well, it makes it 2 witness rule.
Yeah, and then they have the judicial committee after that. But
but
they will ask questions that are really intimidating and quite embarrassing and inappropriate for such a situation. So,
and completely irrelevant.
Yeah.
Like some of the questions that they asked me were completely irrelevant to the whole situation.
So they asked if you had been looking at pornography, which I guess isn't relevant.
So they said to me that we're going to ask you this question because it may have led you to do this. And I thought, okay, well, I don't think watching porn would lead someone to then get a boyfriend or a girlfriend. I don't know. I just thought, well, that's irrelevant because that's a big fat no. But then they kept going.
And you told them that you hadn't done anything, and so they just refused.
They refused.
To believe
you. They assumed that because I had been dating this guy for 6 months and that I had kissed him, that I had done more. But no. But they kept asking me. They kept trying to make me say, yeah, I had, which was weird.
So then did you have another meeting for the 3 elders for the judicial committee? Yeah,
that did end up happening, but then a lot happened in between. So because of the questions they asked me, it left me really, really stressed, and I had lots and lots of uncertainties at that point, because these were 2 men that I actually were I was friends with them. And then for them to ask me those kind of questions and the way they asked me those kind of questions, I thought to myself, I can't go to another meeting with these guys and look at them. I just can't. And so when I came back home, my dad actually gave me an antidepressant to help me sleep, which I'm not prescribed to have. It was a Xanax. And I fell asleep, and then I woke up the next morning and I thought to myself, what happened? It's like my whole world just turned upside down. I was in this home that was meant to be my home that people are now treating. They're not even. They're already shunning me. And then I've just had 2 elders who I thought were my friends ask me the most stupid, ridiculous questions, invasive questions, and I think my instinct at the time was just I need to get out of here. And so what I did was I don't know why, but I called the guy and I said, look, I know from our last conversation, which was the day before when I told him to basically get lost. I was I know from our last conversation it was a bit weird, but I need a place to stay. And it won't be for long, because I thought in my mind that I need a bed. I need somewhere away from here until I can find my own place, whether it be a share house or something like that. But I just need to be away from here, because I was just scared of what I just saw, or what I just was asked, and how people have been already treating me in one day.
So this is it's quite amazing, because you were a total believer, and the interrogation was so traumatizing.
And I still believed at that point.
So you still, doctrinally, I guess nothing had happened, but you just didn't feel comfortable being around these elders.
I had to get out. That was it was like a flight instinct. And so he said, yeah, you can. So what I did was that day, I stayed in my room. But the reason why I stayed in my room the whole day actually was because my father said to me, your stepsister doesn't want to see you, so you're not allowed to leave your room.
Wow.
Which also contributed to the fact that I felt that I needed to get out. Yeah.
And just to clarify as well, that your boyfriend lived at home with his parents, so you weren't moving in or shacking up with him,
No. He lived with his parents. I had met them maybe once or twice, and they're really, really good people, really good people. And so I felt safe enough going there, and I knew he also had a sister as well, who was there, and so I actually slept in his sister's room initially. But so I wasn't allowed to leave my room. I was basically told, okay, you can now go to the fridge to get some food, or you can now go to the bathroom. It was ridiculous. And so what I did was I waited till they actually went to the meeting later on in the afternoon, and I just put everything in a suitcase that I could fit and called an Uber and left.
Wow.
Yeah.
2 days, 1 weekend.
Yeah, in 2 days.
Wow.
And the way it panned out, it actually was to a disadvantage to me, because that led to assumptions, which didn't sit in my favor. So what ended up happening was, a couple of days later, when the elders found out that I had run away, they said, okay, well, we're going to have a judicial committee meeting. And so my dad, he came to me at work one day and gave me the letter for it. And when he gave me the letter, it was actually that night. So he gave me the letter in the afternoon, and I had to go that night to go see them. And I thought, so the 2 elders that I had already spoken to were going to be there. And I thought, I don't feel comfortable. Like, I don't want to be in a room by myself with 3 elders. Probably just going to ask me the same questions.
Yeah, so we haven't actually mentioned what the questions were, but
No.
You've told me, and they was absolutely disgusting, the sort of questions they were asking about what you've
Completely
done.
irrelevant.
Yeah.
Like, completely.
And
like,
very sexual. Like, if it was
Yeah.
something that if someone spoke like that to another person at work, they would be on an HR violation.
You wouldn't even speak like that to a friend.
Yeah.
Like, it was just really invasive, really inappropriate, and sort of like they're not asking the questions to find out anything. They're just asking the questions because, I don't know, they're perverted.
Yeah.
Like, it was just really weird.
Yeah, so it sounds often, and this is like from many people have spoken to me, that it seems to be for their own sexual perversion,
Well,
their
I don't want to say it,
gratification.
but it kind of felt that way.
So it was really quite justified that you did not feel comfortable going to another meeting with them, and yet that again also is in your disfavor if you don't meet with them.
But yeah, so it just didn't look good for me. But what ended up happening was, because again, I still believed, after all this, and I thought, okay, I'm not comfortable to do it in person, but I'll give them a call and I'll see if we can do it over the phone. And so they agreed. So what they did was they went to one of the elders' house and used his landline, and they were on speaker to me. But I didn't know what to expect. So I was really scared. Like, I didn't know what they were going to ask me. I didn't know what I was supposed to say. Because at this stage, I was just like, I don't want to get disfellowshipped. Because I have this huge family that are witnesses, and I love them, and I don't want to stop talking to them. Because we were, like, really close. Like, we had family dinners every week at my grandma's. Like, you know, big wog family, like, like, I didn't want that to stop.
Yeah.
So I thought, I'm just going to do whatever I can for it not to happen. So what I did was I actually found the leaked video on the internet about the Elders Judicial Committee.
Okay.
Yeah, so I found that before, and I thought, I'll watch this and see what happens. And you know how they had the example of, you know, basically what not to do and what to do and what to say. And I actually took notes. I took notes because I was like, I'm desperate here. Like, I don't want to be disfellowshipped. Like, it was the last thing I wanted. So I took notes, and then we did the call, and I made sure I answered everything what I was meant to say, but truthfully at the same time, I didn't lie. And they got confused, so they ended up saying, we'll call you back in 20 minutes. They actually called me back in 2 hours.
Yeah.
And when they called me back, they just said, you're disfellowshipped.
Wow.
And I said, okay, can you please let me know why? And they said, because you haven't come to the meeting in 2 weeks. And I thought, okay, that's not really a reason. Can you please give me another reason? And they're like, well, you haven't made the effort to come see us. And I said, how is that a reason? And they said, well, it's not about seeing us. It's about reaching out to Jehovah's hand and accepting his help through us. And I thought, okay. I tried to fight it, but no.
So did they, like, officially, was it for an assumption of fornication? Did they ever tell you that?
Yeah, so what they ended up saying was, you haven't done this, you haven't done that. And then the third reason was because of porneia. And I didn't even know what that meant. So I was like, I'm like, porn, okay, it must mean something along those lines. And they basically said, look, and the reason why you've concluded that is because all these actions that you've taken, and actions being running away from home, having a boyfriend for 6 months. So we have to conclude that, you know, you have done this. And then what I realized was a porneia is a word for a blanket, like, reason for everything that falls under that sort of you know, category. So they actually didn't really know what to do, and they just thought, all right, we'll just use this one as an excuse, because basically it looks like that's what she's done anyway.
So you were still at Harrison's house, and so you just ended up staying there.
Yeah.
And how did you feel like the next day? So this is within a 2-week period. You went from just being a normal pioneer to disfellowshipped for something you hadn't even done.
Yeah.
And living at some other house.
Well, I just thought I just got to make my own way now, and I thought that I would get my own place somewhere, like a granny flat, and try to come back maybe in a different Kong.
So you didn't think that this was the total end with your
No.
family still? You still thought that you
I still thought I was going to keep going. You know, I could fix it. So I had found a granny flat. I was going to move in. And then during the moving in period, I don't know why, but I just started, I think because I knew that, I don't know, I wasn't a witness, so I felt like maybe I was allowed to do research.
And this is where disfellowshipping is a bit counterintuitive because it then gave you that break where you could start actually thinking for yourself and doing the research. But in what sort of period of time did you actually realise, wow, this is not even the truth?
It happened really quick because the research that I did, I went on your website. That's where I started. And then that led to other things. And I think what did it for me was I pulled a report about all the sort of the shares of where they have, for what companies and what they do, like Boeing, for instance. And I thought to myself, hold on, you've got shares in air defense forces and you're going and knocking on people's doors and saying you don't support war. That doesn't make sense. And then there was a whole bunch of other stuff. And it was more like just watching people like Lloyd Evans and yourself make comments about, you know, certain talks about shunning, and, you know, then that led to me doing research about shunning and how actually the Bible doesn't really promote that. It promotes the opposite, which then I found the article in 1952 about how, you know, it actually was pagan. Well, they thought it was pagan, and I thought, why did they change? Like, if it's the truth, why does the message keep changing? And then they just use the excuse that the light gets brighter and brighter, but that's not really the case. But yeah. And
then through all this, Harrison was wonderful because he did a lot of research and he sort of helped you through this.
Yeah, so me, if anything, he kind of would just ask sort of thought-provoking questions, which I guess I never really did before because you just do what you're told.
Yeah, you're not allowed to think about it. You're supposed to.
It's like you don't have critical thinking.
Yeah,
like,
you just absorb what you're told.
Yeah. So it made me think, made me ask more questions, it made me do more research. And then around the same time, the Australian Royal Commission was happening. So then I started watching that, and I was just appalled by the fact that obviously there was a flaw within the organisation about the 2 witness rule, and there was no effort to change it or to go or to admit, yeah, that's a problem and we don't want that to be a problem, so we're going to do this. But they just didn't do anything.
Okay, so you've been out how long? 3 years, is it?
3 years. It was 3 years in March.
And how is your life now?
Really great.
So you must miss the family meals. Like how do you cope with that?
It's still hard. But when I left, my grandparents said to me, they actually got in touch with me, and said, we don't care what happens or if you're disfellowshipped or anything, we'd still like you to come over and have dinner, which was nice. But I'm not allowed to have dinner with the rest of the family. Like, I haven't spoken to them for like 3 years.
Wow. So at least you have a little bit of family.
I have a little bit. So I had my grandparents and I had my cousin who also reached out, but he's inactive. And he was never baptized, so he's safe. So there is a little bit of family, but there is still a lot of family that can't speak to me. My father is a bit on and off. You know, I think he tries, but, you know, it's a bit hard there. And
you really gained a new family because your boyfriend's parents are...
They're amazing.
Amazing. They've really taken you in.
I'd probably consider them my family more than my current family at the moment.
And do you have any doubts that maybe it's the truth?
No.
Not when there's an earthquake or something? No.
Really... I used to get scared of lightning. I remember there was one windy day in the apartment and I was like, oh, it's Armageddon. But
So how is it that you cleared all that indoctrination now? What would you say, like to others, as to how to really move on and get past all that fear and superstition?
I think focus of just live your own truth, because despite leaving, I still want to be a good person or try to be, do the right thing. That hasn't changed, but it's just. Just live your own truth and give it time. It takes a while to learn how to say bless you, and it takes a while to not say jinx and, those little things. But, yeah, just time and just live your own truth and try to, be you.
Yeah, and you did the research, so you made a conscious, intelligent decision at the end of it all. So thank you for your experience. I think it's just amazing that the actual congregation can have such a destructive effect on your own faith. And it's good to see that you've actually ended up at least with the right person and in a better space for it.
Much better space.
Thank you.
Thank you.